America, stop scrolling right now. Because the first coin on today's list is one of the most famous and sought-after Kennedy half-dollars ever produced. The 1964 Kennedy half-dollar. Released shortly after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, this historic coin became an instant symbol of remembrance and patriotism. Millions of Americans saved these coins, but few realize that certain examples can be worth far more than their face value. What makes the 1964 Kennedy half-dollar special is its silver content. Unlike most modern half-dollars, the 1964 issue was struck in 90% silver, making it the only regular issue Kennedy half-dollar with that composition. But here's where things get exciting. Collectors pay significant premiums for coins found in exceptional condition, especially those with strong strikes, beautiful luster, and minimal wear. Even more valuable are rare accented hair varieties from special mint set production, which display additional hair detail above Kennedy's ear. Some of the finest known examples have sold for thousands of dollars at auction, stunning collectors and proving that a seemingly ordinary half-dollar can become a prized numismatic treasure. Many people inherited these coins from parents or grandparents and never bothered to check them closely. Others may have old rolls tucked away in drawers, safes, or coin collections without realizing their potential value. The key details to look for are: date, 1964. Mint mark, none or D. Silver composition, 90% silver. Exceptional condition or rare varieties. Special mint set and accented hair features. Because of its historical significance, silver content, and collector demand, the 1964 Kennedy half-dollar remains one of the most searched-for coins in America. Next up, coin number 1. For accuracy, a normal 1964 Kennedy half-dollar without a mint mark is not automatically worth $800,000. Most 1964 Kennedy half-dollars are collectible because they contain 90% silver, but extraordinary prices are usually associated with rare varieties, special strikes, or exceptionally preserved examples. Still, the 1964 Kennedy half-dollar has one of the most powerful stories in American coin history and is perfect for a dramatic YouTube documentary-style script. Writing variant equals, document ID equals, 62481, urgent. Kennedy half-dollar owners need to see this before it's too late. Stop scrolling right now because somewhere inside an old coin jar, hidden in a forgotten family collection, resting in a dusty drawer, or tucked away inside a box that has not been opened for decades, there may be a 1964 Kennedy half-dollar carrying one of the most emotional and historic stories ever told through American coinage. Most people look at an old half-dollar and see only 50 cents. They assume it is ordinary pocket change from another era. They ignore it, spend it, or forget about it completely. But history often hides extraordinary stories inside ordinary objects, and the 1964 Kennedy half-dollar is one of the greatest examples of that truth. To understand why this coin remains so important, we must travel back through the long history of money itself. Thousands of years ago, before coins existed, people survived through barter. Goods were exchanged directly because no universal system of value existed. As civilizations grew larger, societies searched for a more reliable method of trade. Metal became the answer. Small pieces of precious metal evolved into coins, transforming economies and connecting distant parts of the world. Over centuries, coins became more than money. They became symbols of nations, records of important events, and reminders of historical achievements. Ancient rulers placed their portraits on coins. Empires celebrated victories through currency. Every generation left part of its story engraved in metal. Long after kingdoms disappeared, coins survived as silent witnesses to history. By the 20th century, the United States had developed some of the most recognizable coin designs in the world. Yet no American coin would ever be introduced under circumstances quite like those surrounding the Kennedy half-dollar. The year 1963 shocked the nation. The tragic loss of President John F. Kennedy created a wave of emotion unlike anything many Americans had experienced before. Across the country, people searched for ways to honor his memory. The decision was made to place Kennedy's portrait on a new half-dollar coin, ensuring that future generations would remember his legacy. In 1964, the first Kennedy half-dollars entered circulation. The public response was immediate and overwhelming. Americans wanted these coins not only because they were money but because they represented remembrance, history, and national unity during a difficult time. Imagine what it must have been like when the first Kennedy half-dollars appeared. People lined up at banks hoping to obtain examples. Families saved them as keepsakes. Many citizens refused to spend them because they viewed them as memorials rather than ordinary currency. Almost overnight, the coin became one of the most recognized pieces of money in the country. The 1964 issue was especially significant because it was struck in 90% silver. This gave the coin a distinctive appearance, weight, and feel that collectors continue to appreciate today. It represented the end of an era because silver coinage would soon begin disappearing from everyday circulation. Every surviving 1964 Kennedy half-dollar carries a connection to that remarkable period. Think about how much history this coin has witnessed. It survived social change, technological revolutions, economic transformation, and the passing of generations. While countless objects from the 1960s disappeared, these coins endured. Collectors often describe coins as miniature time capsules. Unlike photographs stored in albums or documents hidden in archives, coins traveled through daily life. They moved through stores, restaurants, banks, and businesses. They passed through countless hands while silently recording history. Imagine holding a 1964 Kennedy half-dollar today and wondering where it has been. Perhaps it was saved by someone who remembered the events of 1963. Perhaps it sat untouched in a family collection for decades. Perhaps it traveled across several states before finally finding its way into a collector's hands. Every possibility becomes part of its story. This connection between history and everyday life is one reason coin collecting remains so popular. Coins allow people to hold a physical object that existed during important moments in the past. They create a direct connection between generations. The Kennedy half-dollar series remains one of the most famous coin series ever produced by the United States Mint. Its design is instantly recognizable. Its history is unforgettable. Its connection to a defining moment in American history gives it a significance few other coins can match. As decades passed, many 1964 Kennedy half-dollars disappeared into collections. Some remained untouched in original rolls. Others were preserved as family keepsakes. Many were removed from circulation because people wanted to save them for future generations. Their popularity ensured that they would become lasting symbols of remembrance. The excitement of coin collecting comes from discovery. Every old coin carries potential. Most may be ordinary. Some may be unusual. A few become especially desirable because of condition, rarity, or historical significance. The possibility of finding something remarkable keeps collectors searching through old collections and inherited coin boxes. The 1964 Kennedy half-dollar reminds us that value is not measured only by price. Historical significance matters. Emotional significance matters. The stories connected to an object matter. A coin becomes meaningful because it preserves memories and connects people to important moments in history. Think about how many Americans saved these coins when they first appeared. They understood that they represented something larger than money. They represented a moment that shaped a nation. Decades later, those coins continue carrying that message forward. That is why collectors remain fascinated by the 1964 Kennedy half-dollar. It is not simply a silver coin. It is a symbol of remembrance, resilience, and history. It reminds us that even the smallest objects next up. Now, because somewhere inside your home, hidden in an old coin collection, forgotten inside a dusty drawer, resting quietly in a jar of loose change, or passed down through generations of family history, there may be a 1972 D. Kennedy half-dollar carrying a story that reaches far beyond its face value. Most people look at a half-dollar coin and see only 50 cents. They assume it is just another piece of old money from the past. They ignore it, spend it, or forget it completely. But history has a remarkable way of hiding extraordinary stories inside ordinary objects, and the 1972 D. Kennedy half-dollar is one of those fascinating reminders that the smallest treasures often carry the greatest stories. To truly appreciate this coin, we must first travel back through the long and remarkable history of money itself. Thousands of years ago, before coins existed, people depended entirely on barter. Goods and services were exchanged directly because there was no universal system of value. Farmers traded grain for tools. Craftsmen exchanged their skills for food. Merchants carried goods across vast distances, hoping to find willing trading partners. As civilizations expanded, the need for a standardized form of exchange became impossible to ignore. The invention of coins transformed human history. Suddenly trade became easier, economies grew stronger, and entire regions became connected through commerce. Coins carried symbols of kings, emperors, nations, and cultures. They celebrated victories, recorded important events, and preserved history in metal. Long after ancient civilizations disappeared, their coins survived as silent witnesses to their achievements. Centuries later, the United States developed its own coinage traditions. American coins became symbols of national identity, reflecting important people and events that shaped the nation. Among the most recognizable modern designs is the Kennedy half-dollar, a coin born from one of the most emotional moments in American history. When President John F. Kennedy was remembered through a new coin design, the nation embraced it immediately. The Kennedy half-dollar became far more than currency. It became a symbol of remembrance, hope, and continuity. Americans saved the coins not only because they were beautiful but because they represented an important chapter in the country's story. By 1972, the Kennedy half-dollar had already established itself as one of the most recognizable coins in circulation. The Denver Mint produced millions of examples bearing the small D mint mark. These coins entered everyday commerce and quickly became part of daily life across the nation. Imagine America in 1972. The country was experiencing rapid technological change. New industries were emerging. Families gathered around televisions to watch historic events unfold. The space age continued inspiring people to dream about the future. Automobiles filled expanding highways. Communities grew and changed. Through all of it, coins like the 1972 D. Kennedy half-dollar passed quietly from hand to hand. Every coin carried a story. A single half-dollar may have purchased a meal at a roadside diner. It may have been placed into a vending machine. It may have traveled through banks, stores, movie theaters, and restaurants. It may have crossed state lines multiple times before eventually finding its way into a collection. Every exchange became part of its journey through history. Collectors often describe coins as miniature time capsules because they preserve moments that would otherwise disappear. Unlike newspapers that fade or photographs that remain hidden in albums, coins moved through everyday life. They witnessed history firsthand. They were present during ordinary moments that collectively shaped generations. The 1972 D. Kennedy half-dollar represents more than 50 cents. It represents an era of transition, innovation, and growth. It survived decades of economic changes, cultural shifts, and technological revolutions. While countless objects from the early 1970s disappeared, these coins endured. That survival is one reason collectors remain fascinated by old coinage. Every surviving coin is evidence that history can endure in unexpected ways. It reminds us that even the smallest objects can outlive entire generations and continue telling their stories. Imagine discovering a 1972 D. Kennedy half-dollar in an old collection. At first glance it might appear ordinary. But when you think about everything that has happened since the year it was struck, the coin suddenly becomes something much greater. It becomes a direct connection to another era. Coin collecting is ultimately about discovery. It is about curiosity. It is about asking questions. Where has this coin traveled? Who carried it? What events occurred while it circulated? How did it survive all these years? Every coin invites those questions and rewards those willing to explore its history. The Kennedy half-dollar series remains one of the most beloved coin series in American numismatics because it combines historical significance with widespread recognition. Almost everyone recognizes the design, yet relatively few people stop to consider the stories hidden within each coin. As decades passed, many Kennedy half-dollars disappeared from circulation. Some were saved by collectors. Others were placed into family collections. Some were forgotten for years before being rediscovered. Their survival allows modern collectors to connect directly with the past. This connection between generations is one of the most powerful aspects of coin collecting. Coins pass from one era to the next. They become links between parents and children, grandparents and grandchildren, collectors and historians. They preserve memories long after those memories might otherwise fade. The 1972 D. Kennedy half-dollar reminds us that value is not always measured only by money. Historical significance matters. Emotional connections matter. Stories matter. A coin becomes meaningful because it represents something larger than itself. Think about the millions of people who may have handled one of these coins. Think about the lives they lived, the challenges they faced, and the memories they created. Every surviving half-dollar carries traces of those journeys. That is why collectors continue searching through jars, albums, inherited collections, and forgotten boxes. They understand that history often hides where few people think to look. Sometimes the next fascinating discovery is already sitting at home, waiting quietly to be recognized. Next up, the 1985 D. Kennedy half-dollar is a fascinating example of how a simple coin can carry decades of stories within its metal surface. To understand why collectors continue searching for old Kennedy half-dollars, we must first travel back through the incredible history of money itself. Thousands of years ago, before coins existed, people relied on barter. Farmers traded crops for tools, craftsmen exchanged goods for food, and merchants traveled long distances carrying products in search of fair trade. As societies expanded and economies became more complex, civilizations needed a more efficient system of exchange. This need led to the creation of coins, one of the most important inventions in economic history. From the ancient world to the modern era, coins became much more than money. They became symbols of nations, reflections of culture, and records of important moments in history. Kings placed their portraits on coins. Empires celebrated victories through coinage. Entire civilizations left their stories behind in metal, allowing future generations to glimpse the past through the currency they created. The United States embraced this tradition by producing coins that honored important people and events. Among the most recognizable designs ever created is the Kennedy half-dollar. Introduced in the 1960s, it quickly became one of the most beloved coins in American history. Its design honored President John F. Kennedy and immediately connected with the American public. As the years passed, Kennedy half-dollars remained part of American coinage even as they became less common in everyday circulation. By 1985, the coin had already become a familiar symbol to millions of Americans. The Denver Mint produced large numbers of the 1985 D issue, identified by the small D mint mark. These coins entered circulation and quietly became part of daily life across the country. Imagine the world of 1985. Personal computers were becoming more common. New technologies were beginning to transform communication. Popular culture was changing rapidly. Families gathered around televisions to watch major events. Businesses adapted to a rapidly evolving economy. Through all these changes, the 1985 D. Kennedy half-dollar moved from hand to hand, participating in everyday transactions while unknowingly becoming part of history. Every coin has a journey. A single Kennedy half-dollar may have traveled through countless cities and towns. It may have purchased meals, movie tickets, groceries, or souvenirs. It may have been saved by a child, stored by a collector, or forgotten in a drawer for years. Every transaction added another chapter to its story. This is what makes coin collecting so fascinating. Coins are among the few everyday objects that survive long enough to become historical witnesses. They pass through generations while preserving evidence of the era in which they were created. Unlike many objects that disappear over time, coins often endure for decades, carrying their stories forward. Collectors often describe coins as miniature time capsules. Holding an old coin creates a direct connection to another period in history. It allows people to imagine the lives of those who once carried it and the events that unfolded while it circulated. Every mark, every sign of wear, and every detail becomes part of that connection. The 1985 D. Kennedy half-dollar represents an era of transition and innovation. It emerged during a decade remembered for technological growth, cultural change, and economic development. Although millions were produced, every surviving coin has its own unique journey through time. As decades passed, many Kennedy half-dollars disappeared from circulation. Some were saved by collectors who appreciated their design. Others were placed into family collections and forgotten. Some remained untouched for years before being rediscovered. Their survival helps preserve a connection to the past. The excitement surrounding old coins often comes from possibility. Every collector dreams of discovering something unusual. While most coins are common, the search itself creates excitement. Every jar of old change, every inherited collection, and every forgotten box has the potential to reveal an interesting piece of history. The Kennedy half-dollar series remains popular because it combines historical significance with widespread recognition. Even people who know little about coin collecting often recognize the design. Yet few stop to consider the remarkable stories hidden within these coins. Think about everything that has happened since 1985. Entire industries have transformed. Technology has changed how people live and communicate. Generations have grown older. Historic events have reshaped the world. Through all those changes, some 1985 D. Kennedy half-dollars survived, carrying memories from another era into the present day. This endurance is part of what makes coin collecting so rewarding. Coins connect generations. They remind us that history is not something distant and unreachable. It exists in everyday objects that continue to survive long after the world around them changes. The 1985 D. Kennedy half-dollar reminds us that value is not measured only by money. Historical importance matters. Stories matter. Connections matter. A coin becomes meaningful because it links the present to the past and allows people to hold a tangible piece of history in their hand. So before you ignore an old Kennedy half-dollar, take a closer look. Examine the date. Study the details. Think about where that coin may have traveled and how many people may have carried it before it reached you. Consider the decades of history preserved within that small piece of metal. Because somewhere right now, a 1985 D. Kennedy half-dollar may still be resting quietly in a forgotten collection, preserving memories from another time, carrying a remarkable story through generations, and waiting patiently for someone to appreciate the history hidden inside a single American coin. And perhaps the next great discovery in your collection is already there, quietly waiting to be noticed before it becomes too late.